This video is part of a video series with world-renowned recovery expert or healing expert Gary Ronald. What you're going to learn here is something that will change your life, make you a better person, and it will completely fill your mind with information that will make you better day in and day out. Enjoy the series, and of course in the description box below, you will see a playlist listed where you can watch every video, parts 1 and beyond.
And then along came the opportunity to go back one step. And that step was dealing with what people are calling today recovery. And I looked at the athletic market and said, you know what, I think I want to go back to the pros. I'm getting older. I did everything I can do in these other categories. I want to go back to the pros now. And if you say I want to go work with the elite athletes, that's not the pass. You don't get to go. Okay? You don't get to go into the Yankees training room because you say you want to. You have to have something to say. So I looked and said, what is everyone doing that could be done better? And I looked at this thing and I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, they don't even know what recovery means. And they've got it so messed up now because there's recovery gels, there's recovery cream, there's recovery shirts, there's recovery socks, recovery drinks, recovery bars. I'm going to scream if one more person claims they're an expert in recovery. So I just said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do recovery. I'm going to call it what it really is. Because recovereds, apostrophe S, recovereds, just another word for nothing left to heal. Okay, now you got to follow me for a second on why that matters. Once you switch it from Madison Avenue to the recovery nonsense, and you put it over here to heal, now you got to be scientific. You got to be truthful. You got to say what's actually happening, and why don't you heal, recover? What makes it so that you're not fully recovered? And maybe more importantly, how's caused so many people say they're not fully recovered? Or some people say, I'm overtrained. And I go, I think you guys might be mixing up terms. Are you under-recovered or overtrained? Two entirely different questions. And it's so important to understand that if you're under-recovered, we can work on that. In other words, you're not healed yet from your training. And then you look and say, well, so what are you doing now? Well, they're doing hardly anything. I mean, anything sensible. They're not dealing with the reason that you don't heal. Now think about why you heal. You heal because you cause damage and you break tissue down, which is good. You're training and you break tissue down. You're a major league pitcher and you throw a ball and you break tissue down. And as a result of that tissue damage, the microtrauma, which, by the way, microtrauma, macrotrauma, who cares? Trauma's trauma. The body doesn't go, that's only a little damage, so we're not going to manage it the way we do big damage. No, everybody's the same.
Yeah.
You get hurt, Cascade goes off, which, by the way, Marc stands for a muscle activated recovery cascade.
Okay.
That's what happens when the muscle is driving that recovery process.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that I ask everyone that I deal with up front. Simple question for you. Do you want to recover or do you want to improve? Don't you want to get better? Don't you want to recover and then adapt? So are you really trying to get stronger as a result of the work you did? Yeah. To recover, I'm at 1, and now I train, I'm a 0, and now I'm back to 1, and that's good? No. I want to be at 1 1/8 now. So you have to recover and grow. So you got to start playing with what the whole point is. The point is you train, you work, and you anticipate as a result of that, you're going to be better as a result. Not equal. Well, recovered implies that you're back to where you were.
Yeah.
I'm going to be back to where I was. I'm going to be better.
Yeah.
So now you start looking and saying, okay, what are we talking about here? A very simple idea. Here's what I know happens. And by the way, I don't have personal opinions that I purposely put out. I try to stay evidence-based. I slip every once in a while. I don't mean to. I try to stay what we know as a body. What do we know? Scientifically, what do we know? Here's what I know. When you damage tissue, the human body is designed to self-repair, not self-destruct. So all you have to do is look and say, is what I'm doing facilitating healing or not? If it's recovery, you should be facilitating healing.
Yes.
If it's not recovery, well, then you should be going the other way. So let's take something borderline. You've heard of foam rollers, right? The intent of a foam roller is to find a bad spot and roll real hard on it and break that adhesion up, right? Okay, could that possibly be a recovery technique then? If the intent is to cause damage, that can't be a recovery technique, right? It's got to be a low end of training, but it clearly can't be a recovery technique. So you go, oh, okay, well, what's the point of that? The point of it is you have to get things in the proper category so you can judge what you're doing. So people will often say to me, well, how about like a hook grip? You know, those metal bars that you go, that's got to be training. It can't be recovery because the intent is to break tissue. It's to break adhesions. How can that possibly be recovery? Yet it's often called a recovery tool. It's not a recovery tool. It's a training tool. It's a low-end training tool. I mean, compared to doing a heavy squat, it's low, it's very little damage, but it's still damage. So then you say, well, I want to recover, I want to heal. What do I need? You need proper, adequate, ideal, optimal, I don't know what the right word is for how your brain thinks, but whatever, it's one of those words. Nutrition,
Yes.
hydration, and rest. Got to get down. So you got to fill them in first for me. I'm assuming they're there when I show up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're in place, what's the next thing you have to do? Well, you have to get the body to heal. Remember, it's designed to self-repair, not self-destruct, but you have to get it to do it. So how's that work? Well, it's pretty much automatic pilot, but it's based on movement. It's based on muscle activation. And the obstacle is congestion. And now you say, what? And I understand that, because even I say, what sometimes about that one? Look, here's the obstacle, it's congestion. You're going to heal. You will heal. You train, you're going to heal. You stay out of the way, you'll heal. Do nothing, just hydrate, nourish, and rest. You will heal. Now, what's the thing that slows that down? There's only one thing that slows it down, and that's congestion. If you decongest the area, okay, there's a crash up on the highway, and the EMT trucks are trying to get to the crash site, but they can't get there because everybody's in the way. Well, they can't solve the problem because the problem's up here. They know how to solve the problem, and they're ready to do it, but they can't get there.
Can't access it.
Okay, so your recovery system, your healing system's the same way. If you've got congestion in the way, you're compromising the repair and cleanup crew getting to the damaged site.
Wow.
So all you do is decongest the area and let your immune system, your innate intelligence take over. It'll fix it if you're properly hydrated, nourished, and rested. Okay? So we got those three in place. You decongest it, you're an automatic pilot now. But here's how it works. Now, I've made this up, okay, so this is not out of the textbooks, but no one's ever, I have over 100 professional athletic teams that I work with, and elites all over the country. So somebody would have pointed out to me by now, if I was wrong, somebody would have said, hey, by the way, that's wrong. And by the way, if you hear what I'm saying is wrong, send me an email and tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like real now.
Honestly, just real quick, my mind is absolutely blown.
Yeah.
I'm seriously, I've never been this intent on listening in my life. This is insanity. Like, just the way you break it down, the whole paramedic analogy, holy crap. Like, this is next level. But yeah, carry on.
Okay, so here's what has to happen. Remember, I made this one up. But stay with me, because if it's wrong, I'm perfectly willing to correct me.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever invented the human body, whatever you believe, I don't want to argue about what you believe, but whoever, whatever, however we got invented, was so smart that they said, look, these people are going to stub their toes. they're going to need a way to self-repair because I'm not going to be able to get to everybody one at a time. So they're going to make it so they can self-repair. So what is it they'll always have to do? Move. Because remember, there weren't stores, there weren't buildings, you had to like stay out of trouble and not freeze to death, not get eaten, and find something to eat. So you had to like move. So the human body is designed to self-repair and not self-destruct via muscle activation. And you say, what? Look, it's very simple. When I grew up, if I took a test regarding the purpose of muscles, it would have been to ambulate, to move, and for appearance. That's what muscles were for. That was it. That's all they ever told us. Turns out that muscles are actually the most amazing drugstore in the world. In fact, I say that muscles make CVS and Walgreens look like a candy store. They are producing and releasing what are called myokines. Now, myokines are relatively new in the literature. Around 2004, 2005 was first really understood. The first myokine, by the way, was myostatin, but they didn't call it that. Now, you know what myostatin is in your world because you're trying to block it, right? Okay, well, interestingly, that's a myokine. It's produced and released by the muscles. And the reason that it's there is to prevent too much muscle growth. Now, in the bodybuilding world, you're trying to block that one because it's like, I gotta get that one out of the way.
Yeah.
Well, let's go over to the rehab world for a second. Why in the world, if someone were injured, wouldn't you immediately evaluate and understand the myostatin levels? Because tissue regeneration post-trauma is contingent upon not having the myostatin blocking the recovery process, the regeneration process.
Yeah.
It's not even in the question. It's like, guys, did you ever talk to the bodybuilders? Because they know all about this question. You know all about it. I can see it in your eyes. You know all. You go over to the rehab world, and they're like, what are you talking about myostatin? I'm like, guys, do you know what brings myostatin levels down? Aerobic muscle activation. That's what brings the levels down. Because the myostatin's there to prevent excessive muscle growth. And if you're inactive, you're still, which stillness is the enemy. I have an article called Stillness is the Enemy, by the way. If you look that one up, you just put my name, Stillness is the Enemy, it'll pop right up. It's free. And I say that because a lot of people are trying to sell stuff. I'm not trying to sell stuff. I'm trying to get information to you so you stop doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you stop and you say, well, you get rid of myostatin, well, you have to see your muscles produce and release that to prevent you from getting too big. And if you're not using the muscles, they'll begin to atrophy or shrink. You go, oh, so that would matter in recovery? Well, of course it matters in recovery. Now, post-training, you clearly don't want elevated myostatin levels, so you'd want to be doing some kind of aerobic activity to keep the myostatin levels low. Okay, well, so how many people do that? Hardly anybody. Should you? Yes. Oh, I'll take a myostatin blocker. Well, why don't you just block it by doing a little aerobic activity and just block it that way? But past that, the muscles produce and release these myokines, and the myokines are amazing processes going on in your body that your muscles are producing and releasing. They're driving the tissue regeneration process. And the tissue regeneration process is what you're trying to do. You're trying to, quote, recover, heal, but you want to grow. You want to be bigger as a result of what you do. Okay, well, so then why don't you make sure that you produce and release an adequate supply of the myokines that are brought to the area? Because no one brought it up. Yeah, you go in the literature and you Google myokines and you start reading all about it, you'll see it has everything to do with everything regarding muscle tissue preservation and regeneration. And by the way, here's an odd thing you may never thought about until I just say it back to you. Have you ever heard the words tissue preservation and regeneration in the same sentence? Okay? I Googled it after I made it up the first time, and I went, I don't think I've ever said that before. Well, it's like, guys, what are you doing? Tissue preservation and regeneration, that's what matters. Let me give you a simple thing. Driving back over here to the RICE protocol. Now, for anybody who is listening and doesn't know where I'm coming from here, I'm going to stay right in the middle of science the whole time. I'm not going to go out of evidence-based. If I could prove to you that the godfather of the Ice Age, the Harvard-trained doc, board certified in 4 medical professions, if I could prove to you that he has not only publicly recanted regarding his RICE protocol, rest, ice, compression, elevation, which is what this is all based on, if I could prove to you that he has not only publicly recanted, said I made this up in my 1978 sports medicine book, research has clearly shown I was wrong, don't do it, it delays healing, and then references that it causes additional damage. If I could prove that to you, and further prove that he wrote the foreword to the Anti-IceMan's book, which is me, ICE, the illusionary treatment option, if I could then prove to you that he wrote the foreword to the second edition of that book, would you at least listen to him?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
No, I would.
Google it, it's a fact. Okay? Now, with
Real
that,
quick, a takeaway for everyone that they might have missed. Something that you put forward, is that linked in the article we previously mentioned about how cardiovascular exercise or aerobic muscular activity can lower the myostatin levels?
Google myostatin levels aerobic activity.
Okay.
It'll pop right up.
Yeah, so that's a really cool thing.
Honestly,
could
that's
be
a video
takeaway.
in and of itself.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So
because
we
that's
do,
the holy grail, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that in cardio, bodybuilders are so anti-cardio because it'll stunt your growth. The question I get probably most often is, if I'm trying to bulk, should I do cardio?
Yeah.
That's insane. This will basically blow people's minds.
Well, maybe not cardio. You could use, if you're concerned about not doing cardio, you could use a muscle activation device and just do the muscles that you're trying to work.
And that's
You don't have to do cardio.
That's what brought me to you, as I think it's a good way to kind of segue, is the last probably, I'd say, seriously, 4 years of my life, I've been on a quest to essentially feel better every day as I age. I think when you hit your mid-30s, I think it's about time that people look and they say, I'm not in my 20s anymore, things feel a bit different, but I want to feel better than I did back then. And we've introduced a lot of things to, between Sean and myself, to people, to our people who know us, who follow us, in helping improve their life daily. And in my research, again, I came across, unbeknownst to me, this is something you're a huge part of, the Marc Pro. And it's something that, I'm not going to speak for you, but it's extremely interesting, and we're talking about the ability to increase recovery, and then we're talking about elite athletes. The goal is, how quickly, like you said earlier, can I get back on the field at 100%, or my new 100%, which is gradually improving? How quickly can, say, my daughter's a soccer player, she strains her hamstring. How quickly can we improve healing to that area? How much better can we feel? How can this aid in hypertrophy? And I think that's something that it's a good time to kind of go into this, because we're kind of right there, is the Marc Pro, which is, which I'll let you explain. Like, what is, like, this is, you're wearing a hat, and you're wearing the hat, and it's what you do, it's how I found you. What is the Marc Pro?
Well, I want to touch what you just said. I'm going to rate the Marc Pro after that, I promise.
Perfect.
Let's
take your time, man. I'm
just
absorbing this.
Let's look at an injury, okay? Let's look at an injury. Now listen carefully and speak up if you hear me say something that doesn't sound normal, okay? So I want you to say, right there. Athlete rolls their ankle, 3 minutes to go in the game. The medical team runs on the court, confirms, in fact, emergency medicine is not needed. They make sure nothing's out of place, they can breathe, there's no hit, there's no concussion, they make sure everything's good. They help the player to the bench. Some very helpful person, an aide of some kind, maybe an assistant athletic trainer, brings a bag of ice over, they put it on the ankle, they say, look, we'll go downstairs after the game, we'll get an x-ray, we'll see what's going on. Now they go downstairs, they get an x-ray, doc comes out, good news, 2nd to 3rd degree sprain, no problem, you'll be good to go in a couple weeks. Here's an anti-inflammatory, here's a pain med, here's a muscle relaxant, take these as needed, follow the prescription, and use ice as needed during the night. Tomorrow morning, when you get up, you're about, come to the training room, we'll figure out what we're going to do next. Okay, did you follow that?
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Sounds like my entire.
When did it go
course.
wrong?
Well, first, when he first
No,
injured.
no, under normal conditions, when did it go wrong?
Well, the ice.
Under the way they do it, when was it wrong?
Probably when they put him on the bench.
Right after they said emergency medicine is not needed. Everything following was wrong. And you go, you can't say that. Oh, no, I already said it, so I can't hide it anymore. So it doesn't matter. No one's going to be offended that I work with because they've already heard me say it. And when you go in the world that I go into, I'm with the elite of the elite. And if you go on my Twitter feed, you'll see that last December, I was finally allowed to acknowledge that I had been invited to the White House twice to work with the President of the United States personal physical therapist, who of course is a military therapist, who knows me from the military, the work I do with the military. How many people have been invited to the White House to talk to the President's personal physical therapist about this topic? Okay, me, I was there. I was there for hours. And you say, well, does that matter? It matters a lot, because what's going on is that we don't understand what happens and what's wrong until you hear what happens and what's wrong. So when he invited me the first time to the White House, by the way, there's a document on my website from last December that you can actually read. I wasn't allowed to tell anybody at first, but once the administrations were officially changing, I was allowed to acknowledge that, in fact, I was there, and they gave me a certificate thanking me. Now, should that impress you? No, because I'm just a reporter. I mean, unless you're impressed with reporters, I'm a reporter. I'm a very well-organized reporter and a teacher, but that's all I am. I'm not a scientist. I don't invent anything. I just bring facts together and help you understand them. So let's look at that athlete rolls his ankle. Important to make sure it's no concussion. Important to make sure he's not going to bleed. It's not bleeding out, and that nothing's where it doesn't belong. So he's not dislocated or a bone sticking out or whatever. He's good to go. And you take him to the bench, you put ice on it. Why'd you do that? Well, we put the ice on to prevent swelling. Well, hold on. You want to prevent swelling? Or are you trying to prevent the fluid from getting to the site? Well, I want to prevent swelling. Well, you're kind of missing the point then, because that would mean that you would allow the fluid to get to the site, because that's bringing the repair and cleanup crew. So the reason that the fluid comes is because the damaged vessels open up, they dilate, and increase perfusion.
That's the emergency responders in your highway analogy.
Correct.
With an accident.
Correct. So they're supposed to come.
The ice is literally traffic.
Yeah.
When you ice, you're causing traffic that's preventing these responders from getting there.
And they can't get there.
Yeah.
So you clearly wouldn't want to prevent the repair and cleanup crew from getting to the site, right? You wouldn't want to prevent that, but you don't want swelling. And I say, well, so hold on a second, let's just make sure we're not messing things up here, because when you put the ice on, what you've done is slowed everything down. You caused a backflow from the lymphatic vessels into the interstitial space, which actually brings more fluid into the area. And then on top of that, you're causing additional damage. The evidence is unchallengeable at this point. You've heard of frostbite.
Yeah.
So you know you can kill skin cells. I'm sure you've read or seen information regarding never put ice over a nerve because of the nerve damage.
Yeah.
If you haven't, just Google nerve damage and cryotherapy, which is what icing is called. And you'll see all the lawsuits against the companies that make those products that put ice on people. And then the Journal of Athletic Medicine Research back in September of 2013 published an article where they proved that if you put ice on damaged tissue, it actually causes additional damage. In other words, it kills more muscle. And very sophisticated study. It's all referenced in my book. It's in all of my papers. So you go, wait a minute, it kills skin, nerve, and muscle cells. And you're going to put it on somebody who's got hurt. Okay, I get really confused if you think that's a good idea. But hold on a second. You did it because you said you didn't want swelling. But you told me you didn't mind the repair and cleanup crew from getting to the site. So what you really wanted to do was not prevent the repair and cleanup crew from getting there. Remember, the healthy vessels dilate and increase perfusion. That means the fluid is being released on purpose. So you wouldn't want to block that. What you really want to do is not allow the waste to accumulate. So swelling is not a good or a bad thing. It's merely the accumulation of waste at the end of the inflammatory cycle you have not yet evacuated. That's all it is. So then the only reasonable question is, well, how's that work? How does the waste evacuate? Well, via your lymphatics. The particles are too big to go back through your venules, back through your veins. Okay, they can't go that way. They've got to go back through your lymphatics. Well, your lymphatics is a passive system, nearly fully reliant upon muscle activation around those vessels to move the waste out. In effect, you're milking the cow backwards. So when the muscle squeezes around the lymphatic vessel, it pushes it up a chamber. That empty chamber now has negative pressure that pulls waste out of the interstitial space, and so on. And you milk the waste out. So the very understanding of what you're trying to do, which is so important, what's your intent, it isn't that you didn't want the repair and cleanup crew to come, it's that you didn't want it to swell. Well, if you don't want it to swell, you're going to have to ask yourself or find out, if you don't know, if you can't figure it out, you need to go find out who does know, how does that swelling evacuate? Well, via your lymphatics, and it's a muscle-activated technique. You activate the muscles, the waste will evacuate. In effect, it's like a garbage disposal. If you're ever working on your sink and the dishwasher's on and the vegetables start coming back up out of the drain, and you push that button, boom, it all goes. It's gone. Well, that's your lymphatic system. It's a draining system. It's your garbage disposal system. That's what it is. You have to move the waste out by activating the muscles. Well, here's the crazy thing. You put ice on to prevent the swelling, which you didn't prevent. You actually caused more because you caused additional damage. You caused a backflow of the lymphatic vessel. So now there's more fluid in the area. Now the additional damage is setting off an inflammatory response, which actually sends more fluid to the area. So that which you shouldn't have touched in the first place, there's now more of because you interfered.
Awesome.
And you go, who would do that? Basically every bench, every trainer that works in that field.
And you think it all started just because the ice numbs the area? Is that why you think why do you think, what was the logic that they proposed other than just numbing pain?
Well, to prevent swelling, because
Yeah.
no one ever asked the question, would that work? And see, rice is nice, it rhymed, and everyone learned rice is nice. Probably when you went to school, you learned
course.
rice is nice. And once you knew rice is nice, rice compression elevation. Okay, I got it, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so you never asked again because now you want to learn real stuff. That was like yeah, everybody's got that.
Guys, this is a multi-part series. The playlist is listed down below in the description box. However, Gary's product, which is called the Marc Pro, is one of the greatest recovery agents on the market. Coupon code is Lobliner, Lobliner. Put that code in there when you buy it, and $100 will be donated straight to the Semper Fi Fund from your purchase.